We are back at Dave and Buster's. Eli Perlman Sorch here with my co-host, the guy who runs the show on the KYW Philly Soccer Show, Greg Orlandini. Hi, Greg.
Good evening, Eli. How are you?
It's weird having this less than formal discussion with a camera pointed at us.
It's a little different. Yeah, it's not how we usually do it, but it's what we're doing tonight.
So, the Union are going to go play Chicago now. They have not gotten the job done 3 times. We've talked quite at a lot of length about the first 2 games. We'll talk a little bit about the third game. But Chicago is pressing. Game number 4, they have to get a win even though it's on the road. Both teams are in some semblance of disarray. So what gives? What gives in both of these teams?
I don't know. I still have big concerns about the Union's defense. It's not really coming together the way I would hope. Steven Vittoria, he hasn't shown me. His speed's not there, and some of his challenges, like he feels a little clumsy a little bit on some of his challenges. Ethan White, they're not adjusting to each other yet. So the defense is a big concern, and that can kind of blow up on them at any point. So it's tough for me to pick them to win a game right now until that kind of gets solidified. Having said that, Chicago's not great. They don't have a lot of momentum going right now. You're getting them at a good time. Even though it's on the road, Union can be a pretty decent road team. They got 3 on RSL a couple weeks ago, and they were one bad ref call away from walking out of there with 3 points. If they could get a good disciplined performance in Chicago, I think they could win, but just the defense now with Shane Williams, some injury concerns with him. You got to play Fabinho, and we're always worried when Fabinho plays. It's difficult for me to pick them as a winner.
Right, and we've heard that both Sean Maloney and David Ockham have been called into national camps with Scotland and Ghana, respectively. But I echo your sentiments with the defense, because when Ethan White was at his most effective, he was a hammer, and he was running around kicking people and shoving people and grabbing people, because when the ball got by him, Mo was there to sweep up. That's what Mo does. Mo sweeps up. And you're not going to get that out of Vittoria, because he's not quick. He's still not fully engaged with the team and the chemistry. He talks, and it's clear that he's organizing and he's helping to direct traffic. But he's not going to cover that ground, and especially now that you're looking at Vittoria, who's going to not just have to cover for White, but also Fabinho, they're in big trouble, because Adam Ken talked a lot about it, or a bit about it in his player ratings. Fabinho is a guy who stuffs the stat sheet because he's always making challenges. He's not playing safe. He's not playing smart. He's all in. Mm-hmm. And, that led to a terrible turnover to give away a goal. That led to a yellow card. And twice it should have led to a red card, where a guy got away from him and he goes to cut him down from behind, and fortunately the guy skipped away. So, if either of those 2 tackles, which he was trying to make, and not to make the ball, he was trying to take a man down, it's a red card. The Union are down to 9 men, because that's the kind of player he is, and you're living extremely dangerously. So, yes, Mo and Vincent O'Gara have gotten a little bit better as the season has progressed, and have had to cover the ground that they have covered, but you still have a lot of issues when you look at how the back is set up in terms of chemistry. So here's a wild thought. If you were coaching this team, Michael Lahoud at right back and Ray Gaddis at left back, or Fabinho at left back and Gaddis at right back?
I think about putting Lahoud out there at right back. I mean, he's played it in kind of emergency situations. I think he's a better player than Fabinho. If you want to get all your best players on the field, that's one way to do it. Is it ideal? No, not really. But he could at least go out there, and he won't have as many responsibilities as he has in the center of midfield, where he's got to distribute the ball. He could just kind of go out there and defend and maybe push forward a little bit and get involved in the offense a little bit if he has to. But if he just has mission to go out there, sit wide, defend, and tie up players and break up plays from that position, I would do that. I would really consider it.
I threw that at you, and forgetting, of course, that there's a very good chance that Mike Lahoud's in midfield this week, because Maidana still nursing an injury, Zach Pfeffer, the red card, which we'll talk about in a second. So I believe that there's a very real chance that you see on the road looking to have a little more of the ball to sort of slow Chicago down a little bit, that you see Nogueira in a little more advanced role, let Mo play the 8 that he clearly wants to play, and then put Lahoud in at that defensive midfield slot. I think that's not a reasonable certainty. We don't know quite what they're going to get out of Fred, but I would be more. I would expect that to happen more as a better likelihood than to see Fred in there.
Right, and another concern we could look at on the field is it's tough for me to call these guys wingers, but your wide players right now, you're not getting anything from them. You had a really good first half in the Colorado game out of Andrew Wenger, and nothing much since. Sebastian Latou has had some really good looks at goal and cannot finish right now. We've seen him. He goes through stretches where his touch is hard and he can't get the ball into the net, and then something clicks and he starts scoring again. That's great, but he's in a really low ebb right now, and that's just kind of pile that onto the concerns you have with this team right now.
Absolutely, and you need something out of them, and you need them to do something different. You look at Wenger and what he wants to do. He wants to stand 5 yards in the attacking half, receive the ball, and run at people. It's what he wants to do. He's going up against Atiba Harris, who is literally turning his hips to make himself parallel with the sideline and pushing Wenger onto his left foot. And at the moment, Wenger only has one move. And, you talk about it with like a young basketball player who needs another post move. They have one move, it gets figured out, they have to come up with another move. And that's really where Wenger is. Theoretically, this is a place where Fabinho might actually help him a little bit, because you have someone who can overlap on that left side. And who's Chicago's right back right now? Eric Gehrig, who was a terrible center back and is now an even worse right back. So there is absolutely every opportunity for Wenger in this game. Chicago is not a good team at all by any stretch, and Wenger should get those opportunities, but if they're going to put extra pressure on, if they're going to double him, he needs to do more work. It's really disappointing to see a guy who is supposed to have a breakout year not putting in the work, getting tired, looking unfit. That part drives you nuts. Because on the other side, you even saw it out of Sebastian Latou. Fernando Aristeguieta is running. And there were times where he was dropping into midfield to allow Latou to go up top and rest. That's not what you need. You need your two wingers to really try and put something on their shoulders and go at the opposition.
No, and you have this player like Fernando Aristeguieta, you have to do everything you can to support him. And it's good that he's a good teammate and he was dropping back to kind of give that breather to Latou. But Wenger and Latou have to work to help him. He's kind of the focal point of your offense right now. He goes out there, he takes a beating every game, his first few games. He works hard. He's fighting off center backs all game. He's trying to get his space and opportunities. So it's the wide guy's responsibility now to help him out, to get him service, to pull defenders away from him, to do things like that. And they're not doing it. They're just not doing it. And it's what makes the Danny Cruz loan so curious to me. And I'm not going to overstate what Danny Cruz is. He is what he is. But he's a guy to go out there with energy. He goes out there, he's shot out of a cannon. He could pin a fullback back. He could maybe pull a center back, kind of help create a little space. Because you're not getting that kind of running right now from your wide players. You're getting kind of that aimless thing Latou can fall into sometimes. And you said it perfectly. Wenger's got one move. If it's not on, he's a statue. And that's a problem. And that's something he's got more skill and more smarts than that. That he can overcome that. So, and now, you don't have CJ Sapong. We were talking about the depth in the forward position. All of a sudden, it seems like it's gone.
Right, and we talked about this last week at length, where no one's making the run. Aristeguieta is not just winning balls. He's not just knocking things down. He's turning his body and facing up the field, and the runners aren't coming. And it's like when the ball passes that midfield, that quadrant, that little segment in them that's just beyond that midway line, halfway line, the play ends for them. And that's unacceptable. It's frankly unacceptable. And if I'm Jim Curtin, I am furious that you have a guy who's taking two center backs by himself looking to make a pass and no one's running. Are you kidding me? That's unacceptable. And I'm sure, Jim has a good even in head on him, but I'm sure that he is losing his mind trying to make them understand how much more they have to do. Because if they do that little bit more, it'll come so quickly. It'll come so quickly, especially now that you're going up against Lovell Palmer on the left and Eric Gehrig on the right. Two guys who, talk to Kevin Kincaid about guys who aren't quite at the level that should to even be in the league, let alone be starters. Both Latu and Wenger should eat those guys for lunch. And specifically Latu with Palmer, that's a red card. That should be a red card because he should get by Palmer with an ease that will draw not fouls, but bad fouls and tugbacks and the kind of yellow card fouls that really change a game. So we know what they need to do. I don't think we really need to belabor it anymore. Let's just talk a little bit about the Pfeffer red card. Is there any discussion for you?
There really isn't, unfortunately. I mean, at game speed, all the ref is really seeing is an elbow going into a guy's face. Sometimes you make the referee's mind up for him, and we kill the refs, especially first part of this year. I mean, we criticize the refs up and down, but that's a call I think every ref in this league is going to make. It's just, I mean, you look at it, you dissect it, you slow it down, and knowing what we know of Zach Pfeffer, he's not a guy, a dirty player, an overtly physical player, so he's not looking to go throw elbows. And you slow it down, you see him, he kind of lost an edge, and he's just, his body got really awkward, and he just put his arm up and cracked the guy in the face. But again, you see that at game speed, it's a red card. I mean, I don't know, unfortunately it is.
I agree. There's not much more to say about it. I don't know Zach well enough to make any claims about intent. It was a bad foul, and you talk about the test of if that happened in the reverse, if that was if that happened to Adu or Maidana, are we screaming for blood and a red card? Yeah, we are, and I want that foul called when it benefits my team, and I want that. You just, those kind of elbows you just don't want to see at any level.
Especially the concern now with head injuries and concussions and things like that. I think it's kind of part of the referee's responsibility to protect players, and anytime there's a shot to the head like that, it's kind of on the ref to protect to kind of protect the player and kind of calm the situation and do what he did.
So just before we wrap up, we've been using the Ask PSP hashtag, soliciting questions. We've gotten, of course, an obnoxious one from Earl Gardner, but we love Earl. But one more serious question was to the discussion of if we had the ability to go out and make a move, if the markets were all open and we could make a move at any position, what would we look to strengthen? We being Philly Soccer Page making these calls, of course. For me, right now, I think you need fullback depth. Not just that you need a left back because you need a left back, but you need fullback depth because you can't put Fabinho in any more games. It's just so tiresome to put in a guy who is going to be a liability. It's not a guy who's going to have a good game or a bad game sometime. It's a guy who's going to have a bad game, and it's a question of how bad is it. The defense is really, really thin at the moment. When your only center back depth at the moment is either to move Maurice Edu, your captain, out of his position, or to go with Richie Marquez, who, despite having done well in his loan with Harrisburg, still is 1 year removed, just over a year removed from being a Division III athlete who has yet to feature in MLS. So that's a problem at center back. And then Fabinho and Michael Lahoud are your fullback substitutes. And for me, it's just not good enough in this league where injuries happen, issues happen, suspensions happen. So that, for me, that's where I'd go if I could make one move. What do you think, Craig?
The defense. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. They weren't really tested in the Colorado game, but in subsequent games, it's just they just don't look cohesive yet. And now you throw Fabinho out there, and he's another guy we've belabored on since he's been here. Basically, it's not a good enough option, and all those things you said, moving guys out of position to make the defense work. That's not where you want to be. I mean, that's not how you kind of build a winner doing that. The best year this team had was 2011, where it was built on a really good back line and veteran goalkeeping. The first half of that year, they didn't score a lot of goals because they didn't have to. They knew they could go out there and grind stuff out because they had a good goalkeeper. They had really two center backs who were playing as good as they've ever played in their careers, as it turned out. And, you build from defense. Any sport you're in, it's defense, defense, defense. And if they have the resources to go out there and strengthen it, that's what they should do.
I mean, only in MLS do you have a team where they go to the finals, the New England Revolution, lose a starting center back. Instead of replacing him, they bring in their right back to play center back, and that doesn't work. We've seen it doesn't work. Andrew Farrell is not a center back, and you look at what's struggling with them. While other teams, the Red Bulls go at, and yet Perenelle and Damien Perquis goes to Toronto. Some teams are prioritizing defense, and they're getting the bodies they need to get the job done. You look what Orlando City did to get Aurélien Collin from in the league, but to get Sean St. Leger, the Irish international, and Seb Hines from England. They're building from those center backs. Those are guys who aren't flashy, except for when Collin goes bananas, but guys that are solid players who can anchor a back line. And right now, you're not really seeing that because Vettori is still finding his way. He's very slow. He looks very unassured. He hasn't played significant minutes in a long time. And you have Ethan White, who frankly isn't good enough to be a starting MLS center back. Ethan White is a guy who you use in a pinch and definitely could be your bench center back. But to have him starting game in, game out, you see how easily he gets exposed and how easily teams can plan for him. And it seems like only a matter of time before that will be exploited directly for either a red card or goals coming right through his channel. He gave away 2 really terrible passes where he, much like the Fabinho pass to Tesho Akindele, White's giving it directly to Mauro Diaz in the middle of the field to start a counterattack. And it's frankly, I'm saying this a lot today, but it's unacceptable. So Jim Curtin's got his work cut out for him, but they go on the road looking at a Chicago team that they really, really need to beat, and they really should beat. So thank you, Greg, for coming out here at Dave & Buster's.
Thank you.